Silence is only scary to those who fear what they'll hear in their own mind. Let me ask you something, my friends. Have you ever noticed that the loudest ones often have the least to say? That the ones who make the most noise are the ones most afraid to face the silence? Here's the truth they don't want you to know. Silence isn't weakness. It's warfare. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop reacting, when you stop handing your power to people who never deserved it, that's when everything starts to shift. Let them doubt. Let them wonder. Let them regret. That's not your problem anymore. If you've ever been left on red, ghosted without reason, or walked away from like you never mattered, then this video is for you. Because what's coming next will change how you see yourself and how they see you. But before we go deep, make sure to press that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on all notifications, because you're about to walk into a version of yourself that doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, and doesn't break. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a battlefield, dust in the air, screams fading. The chaos is behind you, but instead of fighting, you stand there, calm, centered, silent. No weapon in your hand, but your presence alone shakes the ground. That's what stoic silence is. It's not running. It's not hiding. It's showing up so grounded, so locked in, that they don't know whether to be afraid, impressed, or regretful. Because when you stop explaining and start evolving, you become the riddle they can't solve. You see, they expect you to fall apart. That's what most do. Panic, beg, send one last text, hoping for closure. But my friends, closure doesn't come from someone else's mouth. It comes from your decision to move forward with or without an apology. That's what they never expect. They thought silence would crush you. They thought doubt would control you. But instead, it sharpened you. It stripped the noise. It made you dangerous in a way they never saw coming. Let me tell you something funny. When you stop calling, they start checking. When you stop showing up, they start wondering. And when you stop explaining, oh, that's when their mind becomes their punishment. Because silence forces reflection. And most people run from that. They run because they're scared they'll see themselves for what they truly are. But you faced it, and now you're untouchable. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But in this world, everyone's screaming and nobody's listening. Except you. You learned the art of stillness. You realized that silence isn't the absence of communication. It's the presence of self-respect. You're not ignoring them because you're broken. You're silent because you're building. And look, I get it. Sometimes it feels like if you don't say your side of the story, they'll just believe their version. But let them. Let them believe whatever helps them sleep. Because while they're talking about you, you'll be transforming. While they're guessing, you'll be growing. While they're trying to stir drama, you'll be stacking wins. Silence isn't you giving up. It's you leveling up. So, if you're tired of being misunderstood, if you're done with people who only hear what they want, if you're ready to let your silence be the loudest thing they never expected, then stay with me, because what's coming next will teach you how to turn heartbreak into heat, confusion into clarity, and silence into something so magnetic that they'll regret ever walking away. Comment below right now. I speak through silence. And don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications, because we're just getting started, and I promise you, by the end of this, the version of you they once overlooked will be the one they'll never get access to again. Stay with me. Number 1. The underestimation. They never thought you'd stay quiet. Never underestimate the power of a person who chooses silence over explanation. It means they've already decided you're not worth the energy. They never saw it coming, did they? You, silent, unbothered, detached. That's the part they didn't calculate. They expected a scene, a speech, maybe even a desperate last message. But instead, you gave them stillness. And that's what shook them the most. Because when someone is used to controlling you with emotion, silence becomes their enemy. See, folks, silence isn't just about keeping your mouth shut. It's about holding your power. It's the quiet refusal to give them the satisfaction of knowing what you feel, what you think, or whether you even still care. Imagine a wolf in the snow, wounded, bleeding, but it doesn't cry, doesn't scream. It crawls into the dark, licks its wounds in silence, and comes back stronger. That's you now. You didn't disappear because you're broken. You went silent because you're healing. Because you're calculating. Because you're rising in a way that doesn't need an audience. And that's exactly what they didn't expect. They thought you'd be weak without their attention. They thought silence would break you. But let me ask you something, my friends. Who really broke who? The one who stayed calm, or the one who had to make noise to feel powerful? They might have walked away thinking they won, but you've already taken back something more valuable than their presence: your peace. You've shattered the lie that being loud is being strong. The real strength is knowing when not to speak. And now they're confused. Why didn't you react? Why didn't you chase? Why didn't you fight to prove them wrong? That's silence. It's now echoing in their mind like a question they can't answer. And questions, they're heavy when they don't come with closure. That's when doubt creeps in. That's when regret brews. But here's where the lie lives. In their mind, silence means you didn't care. But in truth, it means you cared enough to walk away from what no longer serves you. It's not easy, I know. Everything in you wants to say just one thing. Defend yourself. Clear your name. Show them who they lost. But folks, remember this. People only value what they lose when it's no longer accessible. Your silence is the locked door they never thought would close. And now, every knock goes unanswered. Every attempt to reopen what they shut too quickly is met with your absence, not your reaction. Let me break another lie while we're here. If you don't speak up, they'll think you're weak. False. That's what emotionally unstable people say to get a response. Real power doesn't need performance. The strongest tree doesn't shake in the storm. It bends, it roots deeper, it survives quietly. You're not avoiding conflict, you're above it. You're not withholding words, you're withdrawing access. And that distinction, that's your power now. Now, I want you to ask yourself, why do you feel like silence is so uncomfortable? Why does holding your tongue feel heavier than saying something? Because society told you that being silent is being passive. But I'm here to break that lie. Right here. Right now. Being silent is being precise. Being silent is being strategic. Being silent is being in control of your narrative without needing to broadcast it. The next time they wonder what you're thinking, remind yourself, you're not here to feed their curiosity. You're here to protect your peace. And the moment you master that is the moment they'll realize they underestimated you entirely. They mistook your silence for softness, but they forgot. Storms are quiet before they hit hardest. So let them doubt. Let them question. Let them pace around in their own head, searching for answers that only your silence can echo. You're not the same version of yourself who used to explain everything. That version begged to be understood. This version walks away without a word because he understands himself. If you're ready to stop reacting, if you're ready to stop explaining yourself to people who didn't deserve the explanation in the first place, then comment below right now. I hold my power in silence. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that your growth doesn't need to be loud to be life-changing. And if that hit deep, smash the like button, subscribe, and stay with me. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about the real reason silence haunts them. Number 2, the curiosity. Silence makes them obsess. A mind left without answers will always build its own prison. Let me tell you something most people won't admit. What truly haunts someone isn't what you said. It's what you didn't. It's not the paragraph you never sent. It's not the text you typed and deleted. It's the silence that follows. Because silence leaves room for imagination, and imagination is always more punishing than truth. Folks, when you go quiet, when you stop posting, stop watching their stories, stop showing up where they expect you, that's silence. That's where their mind starts playing games on itself. Imagine a locked box in the middle of a room. Everyone walks by it. No one knows what's inside. And the longer it stays sealed, the more they wonder, the more they obsess. That's you now. You became the locked box, the question mark they never expected, the quiet force that keeps them up at night. And it's not because you're trying to be cruel. It's because you finally chose your peace over their chaos. Let's be real. They thought you'd crack, that you'd give in and break the silence, that you'd fold like you used to. But you didn't. And now, every day that you don't reach out, don't chase, don't explain, their curiosity grows. At first, it's subtle. He's probably just mad. Then it becomes concern. Wait, why hasn't he said anything? And eventually, it becomes obsession. Is he seeing someone else? Did he really let me go? That's the price of underestimating someone who chooses silence. Because the ones who don't speak, they're the ones you start to fear. Not because they're hiding, but because you realize you never really knew them. And now, you're unpredictable. And unpredictable men, they're unforgettable. Here's the truth, my friends. You don't need to post cryptic quotes. You don't need to flex your glow-up. You don't need to fake being unbothered. Real silence doesn't need to be staged. Real silence speaks for itself. It's not loud. It's lethal. It creeps in slowly, then takes over. And the person who left you wondering? Now they're the one doing all the wondering. And yes, they'll pretend they're fine. Post a selfie. Go out more. Seem louder than ever. But you and I both know that's not confidence, that's cover-up. That's noise trying to fill the space your silence left behind. People don't post to move on. They post to be seen, to be noticed, to be felt. But you? You chose the opposite. You became invisible. And that's what shook them. Why do they care so much now? Why do they suddenly notice your absence more than they noticed your presence? Because when someone is always there, they become background noise. But when they disappear, they become the only thing you hear. You became an echo in their mind. And now, every room they walk into feels a little too quiet. Let's break another lie. Out of sight, out of mind. Not when your energy used to light up the room. Not when your presence was peace in their chaos. Not when your love came without conditions. No, my friend, when you disappear with dignity, you don't fade. You haunt. Now, I know it's not easy. You want to check. You want to see if they're missing you. But hear me, don't trade your mystery for their momentary attention. You worked too hard for your stillness to throw it away for a half-hearted DM. The silence you chose? It's not a punishment, it's a promise. A promise to yourself that you won't go back to explaining your worth to someone who never deserved the explanation in the first place. So let them wonder. Let them scroll through your page and see nothing. Let them check your profile and get no updates. Let them sit with the space you left behind. Because every day they don't hear from you is another reminder that you've finally found something louder than begging: your peace. If you're done being the one always reaching out, if you're ready to make your silence your strategy, not your weakness, then comment below right now. Let them wonder. I don't chase. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that your silence isn't just absence, it's your announcement. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about what happens when the absence becomes too real and the power shift begins. Stay with me. Number 3. The power shift. When they feel the absence. Nothing hits harder than realizing the person you took for granted isn't waiting anymore. You know what's wild, folks? The ones who think you'll never leave are always the most shocked when you do. At first, they feel untouchable. They think they've got you wrapped around their finger, that no matter how far they pull away, you'll come running. But then something unexpected happens. You don't run, you don't text, you don't chase, and that's when the shift begins. Not in you, you already made your decision. The shift happens in them. Imagine this, a fire that's always been lit for them, always warm, always waiting, and one day they return to it, and it's gone cold. No smoke, no flame, no spark. That's what your absence becomes. At first, they don't notice it. But over time, the silence gets louder. The space you once filled starts to echo. And now, they feel it. Not just your absence, but their loss. This is the moment when everything flips. You're not the one bleeding anymore. You're not wondering what they're doing, who they're with, or if they miss you. Because you're too busy building, too focused on yourself. And suddenly the same silence they thought would crush you starts crushing them. That's the power shift. But let's be real. Getting here, it's not easy. It takes discipline. It takes nights where you want to reach out but don't. Days where your emotions scream, but you stay calm. That's where the transformation happens. You stop reacting. You stop chasing people who only noticed your worth when you stopped giving it. And in that stillness, you begin to rise. Not to prove anything, not to flex, but because you finally realized your energy deserves protection. They start to feel it when your name comes up and you're not involved in any drama. When mutual friends mention you and there's no sadness in your eyes, no bitterness in your voice, just purpose, focus, distance, that's when it clicks. You didn't just move on, you elevated. You didn't just get over it, you grew past it. Here's where we break another lie. They'll never regret it. Wrong. They just won't admit it. Regret doesn't always look like an apology. Sometimes it looks like long stares at your profile. Sometimes it looks like asking your friends how you've been. Sometimes it looks like silence, because they're realizing they lost someone who would have gone to war for them while they were busy playing games. And here's the kicker, folks. You're not being cold. You're not being vengeful. You're just unavailable. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually, unreachable. Because when someone breaks the bridge, they don't get to complain about the distance. You're not punishing them, you're just not carrying their weight anymore. That's power, quiet, humble, firm power that doesn't beg, doesn't explain, doesn't ask to be seen. It just is. They'll feel it when you no longer look back, when you stop flinching at memories, when they realize their presence was never your peace, it was your distraction. And now that the fog has cleared, you walk straighter, talk deeper, move smarter, and they're not part of that story anymore. You know what's funny? They used to think you were too emotional, too intense, too invested, but now your calm scares them more than your love ever did, because now you're the version of yourself they never believed you'd become. And that version doesn't wait, doesn't wish, doesn't wonder. So if you're done handing out your energy like it's free, if you're ready to stop shrinking yourself for people who didn't know what they had, then comment below right now. They lost access. I found peace. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that your presence was a privilege, not a guarantee. And now that it's gone, so is their control. Press that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me. Because in the next section, we're going to talk about what happens when they start to break, and you're no longer there to catch the pieces. Number 4. The ego collapse. Doubt starts to creep in. They don't regret losing you right away. First, they doubt. Then they remember. Then they break. You ever seen someone so sure of themselves start to second-guess everything? That's what happens when your silence stretches too long. At first, they're confident, cocky even. They thought walking away wouldn't cost them a thing. They thought you'd chase like always. Thought you'd fold, fall apart, send that message, ask for closure. But now it's quiet. Days pass, then weeks. And you're nowhere to be found. That's when the cracks start forming. That's when ego starts shaking. You see, my friends, silence is the mirror they never wanted to look into. And now they're stuck with it. No noise to distract them, no drama to hide behind. Just their own reflection. And that's where doubt begins. At first, it's just a whisper. Did I make a mistake? Then it grows. Was he actually the one who had my back? Then, boom, it hits like thunder in a quiet room. What if he's really over me? Let me paint you a picture. Think of her standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down into everything Thry used to have. They're looking for a bridge back, but there's none. Just space, just silence, just you. Miles away, not turning around. That's when they starts remembering. Not the fantasy, not the excuses they told herself, but the real things. The way you showed up when they needed strength. The way you protected her even when you were hurting. The way you listened when everyone else just waited to speak. They starts comparing. And let me tell you, those new guys, they might be fun, but they're not solid, not grounded, not you. Here's the truth they never see coming. Your value doesn't hit them until your energy is gone, until your voice isn't calming their storm, until your presence isn't keeping them grounded. And by then, it's too late. You've changed. You're not who you were when they walked away. You're sharper now, heavier, wiser, quieter, and that silence. It screams every truth they tried to ignore. But let's not pretend this is just about them. This is your turning point too. This is where you realize you never needed to prove your worth. The problem wasn't that you were too much. The problem was that you gave too much to someone who wasn't ready to receive it. That's not on you. That's on them. And now, they get to sit with that, while you evolve. You see, folks, the collapse of their ego doesn't happen all at once. It crumbles slowly, every time they see your name and you're not checking for them. Every time someone brings you up and they hear, "He's doing really well." Every time they scroll and you're not there, not liking, not lurking, not playing games. That absence, it becomes weight, and they start carrying the very loss they thought would be light. This is where they'll ask herself, was I cold? Did I let go of something real because I wanted something easy? And maybe they won't say it out loud, but they'll feel it. Every time they saw a version of you that's no longer reachable, they'll feel it. When you don't reply with softness, but stillness, they'll feel it. When they realizes you became the one that got away, not because you disappeared, but because you outgrew her access. And that, my friends, is when you must remember. This isn't about revenge. You're not here to make her pay. You're here to stay aligned, focused, quiet, because you don't heal by proving your worth to the one who overlooked it. You heal by living in a way that doesn't need to be seen at all. So if you're done replaying the past, if you're ready to let their ego collapse under the weight of what they lost, then comment below, let them doubt. I move different now. Let them wrestle with the silence they created. Let your stillness be the mirror they avoid. And if this hit you deep, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in the next part, we're going to talk about how silence isn't just a phase. It becomes your discipline, your edge, your weapon. Stay with me. Number 5. The discipline. When you say nothing but mean everything. A man who masters his silence becomes a weapon the world can't predict. Let me tell you something that'll stick with you for life. Most people talk because they're afraid of being forgotten. But the most powerful men, they go silent not because they're scared, but because they're finally in control. My friends, silence isn't the absence of emotion. It's the discipline to contain it. It's the refusal to give someone the luxury of knowing what you feel. And that hits harder than any argument, any insult, any comeback ever could. They expected you to react. They expected long paragraphs, voice notes, maybe even a breakdown. But instead, they got nothing. And that nothing is louder than every scream they've ever heard. Because you didn't go silent to get their attention. You went silent because you realized they never deserved access in the first place. That's not pettiness, that's evolution. Think of a volcano. On the surface, calm. But beneath, power, force, fire. Not erupting out of rage, but choosing when and if it needs to explode. That's the level you've reached. You no longer feel the urge to respond to disrespect. You no longer argue with people who live off chaos. You no longer explain yourself to those who were committed to misunderstanding you. Because now, you know. You know that your energy is sacred. You know that your silence is not empty, it's loaded. And here's the kicker. Most people can't handle silence, not because it's quiet, but because it leaves them alone with themselves. No validation, no attention, just the weight of their own choices echoing back. While you're out there building discipline, they're spiraling in their own mind, wondering why you haven't flinched, why you're not reacting, why you're suddenly unreadable. Because now you've become a man who doesn't blink when tested, who doesn't chase chaos to feel important, who doesn't respond just to be heard. You've become what they didn't think you'd ever be, calm and in control. That scares people who thought your love was weakness. That terrifies the ones who only knew how to push your buttons and never imagined you'd one day remove the whole panel. Let's break the lie right now. If you don't speak up, they'll write their own version of the story. Good. Let them write fiction. Because the truth? It's being lived, not told. You're not here to convince anyone anymore. That was the old you, the version that explained, defended, apologized for being real. This new version? He doesn't need to be understood to be at peace. And yes, folks, it's tempting. You'll feel it, that itch to reach out, to say just one last thing, to remind them who you really were. But don't, because the moment you speak from pain, you shrink back to who they thought you still were, and you've come too far for that. You're not silent because you have nothing to say. You're silent because your healing is louder than any message you could send. They'll feel it, in every unanswered text. In every day that passes without a call, in every moment they realize your energy no longer flows their way, and when they reach out, and they will, it won't be your attention they're trying to win back. It'll be your control, your calm, your clarity. The things they once dismissed now become the things they crave. But here's the truth. They don't get that version of you anymore. That version doesn't exist for them. Because you don't just go silent to punish. You go silent to protect. You've turned pain into patience, emotion into execution, reaction into restraint. And that's rare. That's power. That's stoic. The world is loud, messy, reactive. And here you are, moving like a shadow with purpose. Saying nothing, meaning everything. So if you're done explaining your silence, if you're ready to let your discipline speak volumes without ever raising your voice, then comment below right now. My silence is my power. Let them keep guessing. Let them spiral. Let them wish they had access to the man you've become. And if this truth cut deep, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me. Because next, we're going to talk about what happens when they try to come back and find the door locked forever. Number 6, the return. They try to reopen a closed door. They always come back, not because they miss you, but because they didn't expect the door to be locked. It's a pattern, my friends. You pull away, you go quiet, you focus. And just when your silence becomes a lifestyle instead of a reaction, they come knocking. Maybe it's a, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." Maybe it's a random meme, a song, a photo from the past. Or worse, a late-night message that reads, "I hope you're doing okay." But let's not get it twisted. That's not love knocking. That's curiosity. That's ego. That's the fear of truly losing the access they thought they'd always have. You see, they didn't expect you to heal. Not like this. Not in silence. Not in solitude. They thought your quiet was temporary, that you'd eventually break the silence like you always used to, but instead, you rebuilt yourself in the shadows. While they were out there flexing, partying, moving on, you were working in silence, reinventing, evolving, becoming someone who doesn't just ignore drama, transcends it. Now, your silence isn't just mysterious, it's dangerous, because it's no longer fueled by pain, it's powered by peace. You don't need revenge, you don't need closure, you don't even need answers. You've reached that rare place where you're unreachable. And that is what pulls them back in. Not because they want to love you right, but because they don't know how to exist without the version of you who once made them feel important. Let me break this down clearly. When they return, they're not always returning for you. Sometimes they're just checking to see if you're still stuck, if you're still orbiting, if they can still snap their fingers and have you come back like you used to. But this time, you're different. You've built walls, not to keep love out, but to keep chaos from sneaking back in wearing old disguises. It's like someone walking into a home they used to live in. Same street, same door. But now the key doesn't work, and they don't recognize what's inside. Because you've renovated your mind, you've furnished your peace. And now, they don't belong here anymore. That's not cold. That's clarity. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of yourself like a fortress, strong, solid, guarded. Not because you hate people, but because you finally understand your value. You don't leave the gates open for anyone just because they show up smiling. Smiles lie, words manipulate. But actions, time, consistency, that's the language of someone who's changed, and most won't speak it. Most want the old access with none of the accountability. They'll say things like, "I've been thinking, I miss how we used to be. I just needed space." But you know what that is? That's a test, not of them, but of you. A test to see if the new version of you still gets tempted by old emotions. And this, my friends, is where most men fail. They break the silence because of nostalgia, because of weakness, because they confuse a return with redemption. But let me remind you of something hard. If someone has to lose you to realize your worth, they never deserved you to begin with. Love that only recognizes your value in absence isn't love, it's possession. And you're not something to be possessed anymore. You're not a placeholder. You're not a backup plan. You're not the man who begs for breadcrumbs while starving for peace. So when they come back, because they will, don't rush to reply. Don't fall for the check-ins. Don't open the door just because someone remembered you exist. You are not a hotel. You are not a pit stop. You are a destination that takes effort to reach. And if they're not willing to walk through fire to get to you the right way, they can keep walking. If you're done reopening doors that led to nowhere, if you're ready to protect the peace you bled to build, then comment below right now. I don't respond to what I outgrew. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that your silence was never a phase. It was a filter. And what didn't make it through was never meant to stay. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me. Because in the next part, we're going to talk about what happens when you've evolved so far. They don't even recognize the man you've become. Number 7, the transformation. You've outgrown their access. You didn't change to impress them. You changed so much, they can't even reach you now. This is where it all shifts, my friends. Not just your mindset, not just your habits, but your identity. There comes a moment in every man's healing where the goal stops being getting over her and becomes getting back to myself. But not the old version, the elevated version. The man who doesn't flinch, doesn't chase, doesn't need closure. The man who looks in the mirror and doesn't see someone healing anymore. He sees someone reborn. See, they thought you were going to stay stuck, that your silence was just a phase. that eventually you'd break the stillness and come crawling back with some emotional apology or a long late-night text filled with nostalgia. They didn't expect you to outgrow them. And that's the twist. They left thinking you'd be waiting, but now you're not even in the same room, not even on the same frequency, not even in the same life. Let me break it to you like this. Evolution doesn't send out invitations. It doesn't wait for others to catch up. When you truly start to level up mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's like moving into a new building and leaving no forwarding address. They can knock all they want, but the man they're looking for doesn't live there anymore. Imagine a butterfly going back to explain itself to the cocoon. Pointless, right? That's you now. You don't need to justify your growth to someone who only knew the version of you that was still learning how to love himself. You don't need to convince anyone that you've changed. The results speak louder than your words ever could. You've outgrown their access, not out of spite, but out of necessity. And it's not just that you're stronger, you're calmer, you think more, you speak less, you move with intention, you protect your energy like it's gold, because now you know it is. You don't overgive. You don't explain yourself to people who never listened the first time. You've learned the most sacred lesson of all. Peace is more important than being understood. And here's where it hits them. When they try to come back, they realize they don't even know how to talk to you anymore. The old jokes don't land. The old patterns don't work. They can feel it in your tone, in your timing, in your distance. You're not cold. You're clear. You're not rude. You're real. And that authenticity, it's intimidating to someone who only loved the version of you that was still seeking validation. They don't get access to the man who wakes up early now, who hits the gym with purpose, who reads, who plans, who builds. They don't get access to the version of you who's busy creating a life that doesn't revolve around their approval. They can scroll, they can wonder, they can miss you all they want, but they can't reach you. Because what they had wasn't just a man, it was a moment. And that moment passed. Let's break the biggest lie of all right here. People don't change. False. Pain changes people. Silence changes people. Rejection, betrayal, disrespect. It either breaks you or it builds you. And you chose to let it build you. That's rare. That's real. That's unforgettable. They say time heals all, but no one talks about what time does to them while you're healing. It doesn't just make them miss you. It makes them realize they never really knew your potential. They loved the man who was trying. Now they're haunted by the man who became. And that gap? It's too wide to cross now. So if you're done explaining your growth, if you're ready to keep rising quietly while they sit in the shadows of who you used to be, then comment below right now, I outgrew their access. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that your growth is not a marketing campaign, it's your lifestyle. And those who can't match your energy, they can't match your presence. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay with me, because next we're closing this chapter for good, and we're doing it with peace, not permission. Number 8, the legacy. Let them regret in peace. You don't need revenge. You just need to become the man they'll never have access to again. This is it, my friends. The final shift, the last turn of the lock. You've done the work. You've gone silent, gone inward, gone through the fire, and came out refined, not broken, not bitter, just built different. And now you stand at the gates of your next chapter, not waiting for her to come back, not hoping for an apology, not needing closure, but holding peace in your palms like a trophy you earned in silence. Let's be real, regret always shows up. Eventually. It might not come with tears or a "please come back" message. Sometimes it arrives quietly, dressed in scrolling habits and awkward run-ins. Sometimes it looks like them checking your page 5 times in a day, or bringing up your name in conversations they swore they'd never have. Sometimes it hits when they're lying next to someone else, but thinking about how you used to make them feel safe in your silence. But you won't be there to see it, because you've moved on. Not just moved on from them, you've moved on from needing to be seen by them. And that is power, real power, not proving you're better, not flaunting your glow-up, just living so fully in your purpose that their opinion doesn't even make it to your radar anymore. Imagine walking past the wreckage of a place you used to live. Windows shattered, doors cracked, the foundation no longer stable. That's what going back would be like. But you don't go back, not because there's no emotion left, but because you finally understand your worth was never meant to be explained. It was meant to be felt. And now, they feel it. In your absence, they feel it when your name comes up and there's no trace of bitterness, just growth. They feel it when your silence is no longer sharp, but solid. They feel it when they realize they're not being ignored out of hate, but out of evolution. And folks, let me tell you something harsh but freeing. Not everyone who loses you will realize what they lost in time to do anything about it. And that's okay. That's not your burden to carry. That's their lesson to live with. You don't need to slam the door. You don't need to burn the bridge. You just stop standing at it. Let them talk to your shadow. Let them apologize to the echo. Let them scroll through a version of you that no longer exists. Because now, you've become someone they only get to remember, not reconnect with. And that right there, that's the legacy. People confuse silence with surrender, but stoic silence, that's a signature. A mark that says, I was here, I cared, I gave more than I should have, and now I'm gone, not to punish, but to protect. It's the cleanest cut, the sharpest blade, and it leaves the deepest impact. Because it doesn't scream, it doesn't argue, it just disappears with dignity. Let me break the lie one last time. They'll never regret it. Oh, they will, but regret isn't always loud. Sometimes it's slow. A whisper in the middle of the night, a song on the radio, a flash of a memory at the worst time. And when it comes, let it. Let them regret. Let them wonder. Let them ache. But do not let them back in. Because if someone has to lose you to value you, they never truly saw you in the first place. And that, my friends, is how you build a legacy. Not by getting even, not by shouting from rooftops, but by becoming so locked in, so focused, so high in your discipline that your silence becomes a monument. A reminder that you were the one who didn't fold, the one who walked away quietly and never came back. If you're done keeping space open for someone who never knew how to fill it, if you're ready to close the chapter without needing applause or permission, then comment below right now. I let them regret in peace. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that healing isn't about being loud. It's about being done. Hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications. Thank you for watching.